Have you ever chased an idea or a vision or the manifestation of something so hard, then it arrives and it's just like, meh. Or it arrives and it becomes more of a pain than a pleasure? I have. Let's talk about it. Hi guys! Thank you for tuning in for another video. Welcome back to my channel. I am Olaoluwa, aka The Lalu Effect. So today we're going to be talking about idolizing there, or the destination, and why so many of us are obsessed with the destination as opposed to actually embracing the journey. Today I wanted to talk about something that's been on my heart, and it's really just for those of you who are on a journey and maybe things aren't picture perfect, maybe things don't look the way you desire for them to. And I really want to point out some things that I've learned along the way that I think will be really helpful for you if you are building a business, if you are building or designing your ideal life, if you are looking to have high performance and high results. So we're going to be looking at the idol of there, or really why so many of us are obsessed with the destination as opposed to embracing the journey and the process. So first things first, I want us to not forget the fact that this place of arrival that we all have in our minds, that special place that we have where we're like, yeah, when I get here, this will be like this. And when I get to this point, then I'll be able to relax. When I start earning this certain amount of money, when I get into this relationship, when I move states, when I finally get this dream job, everything will be okay. But the idea of arrival is an illusion. It is an illusion that keeps us on the journey. However, they say tomorrow never comes because tomorrow becomes today, and then tomorrow never actually comes. And similarly, the place of arrival becomes your current state of living, and all of a sudden what you craved for, what you clamored for, what you worked so hard for just becomes kind of like, oh. And so for some of you who are really passionate about being excellent, working hard, all of these things, you may find that sometimes you work so hard for that thing and then it happens, you're like, oh, okay, great, yay, what's the next thing? And so many of us are programmed like that. First of all, I want to tell you that actually the psychology of your brain is designed for process. Many of us are wired, the human brain is even wired to love and desire challenge, and to look forward to the adventure and the process above arrival, because once you arrive, that tells the brain to relax. I don't know if you've heard or read many articles about elderly people, but one of the biggest pandemics that happens to people the moment they retire from work is just the fact that they retire and maybe their plan was to relax after 45 years of working so hard, and all of a sudden they retire and their health begins to deteriorate massively, because all of a sudden the body has time to catch up with itself, and we're like, oh yeah, we were sick, you know? Or oh yeah, all of a sudden your body has time to relax, and that can actually become detrimental to someone's health. And so what I'm saying is that there's an element of the psychology of over there that keeps us on this hamster wheel. We go around and we push ourselves and we push ourselves only to get to there and to not acknowledge it and to not appreciate it, or sometimes to realize that there was not even what we wanted to begin with. We wanted it because that's what they told us, that's what we should look for or desire. We wanted it because that was what they showed us when we were 10 years old, and then we never really took time to think about whether we even wanted it for ourselves. We wanted it because we saw it in the magazines or the music, or so many reasons why we pick up these desires. And really, I want you to take into consideration that, to really vet the desire that you have, and are you actually ready for the reality of what you say you wanted? I will even use my personal story. For 7 years, I was a leader in a startup that was doing amazing work. We were one of the first in the country to actually start running boot camps for women of color. We were doing so much impactful work that was economically empowering women, but also changing the trajectory of how education and non-traditional forms of education into tech, into high impact careers even looked, especially as we were working with employers and government organizations and things like that. But here's the interesting thing. By year 5, I actually think that I had reached a plateau. So at the beginning, it was like push. We're going to do this. We're going to train all these women. We're going to do amazing work. And then by year 5, I realized I had reached a plateau or a wall. And I couldn't figure out why I couldn't get over this wall. And it wasn't until therapy and some meaningful conversations, and actually 2 years later, that I realized the reason why I hit that plateau and continued to plateau for about 2 years until I exited, in my opinion, was because I actually realized the life that I was building was great and it was beautiful and it looked really sexy. I was respected in certain circles and people recognized me and recognized the work I was contributing to, but it wasn't my dream. The dream that I was living was an image I have created in my mind based on the expectations and the ideas of the people around me. So you're a highly educated, inspiring woman. What do? You go into a high achieving, high impact role and you get results, and then you get those results until you know how to get those results, or you push to get those results until you know how to get those results. And then all of a sudden you're looking around you, you're looking at the team you helped build, you're looking at the millions of pounds in revenue, you're looking at the stress that you go through every time there's a new campaign, you're looking at the mistakes that you're making, you're looking at the continual patterns, and you're looking around and thinking, I don't know if this is actually what I said I want. All of a sudden there's this aha going on inside of me. I'm just like, these questions are popping up. The questions of, is this actually what I said I wanted for me? Or was this what I built in the name of proving a point? And I can confidently say that it's a bit of both. It was a mix. I was building according to the vision that I had in my mind and what I envisioned for myself based on the information and the desires I had developed maybe just as I was leaving uni, which were good. There was nothing wrong with it. I wanted to make people proud. I wanted to show that I could make a lot of money, that I could do great things. I wanted to look good doing it. I always do. But there was a disconnect, and the disconnect was that I had obsessed over there. The disconnect was that there was not what I actually wanted. Because sometimes the there that we're looking for, the destination that we've created in our mind, is actually an emotional state. If it's more emotional than it is physical, then you can create that emotional state today. And actually, many of us have to learn with living by faith in the now for what we want. And for the non-kind of Christian, non-spiritual people, what that really just means is that this world that you've created in your mind, this place that you have told yourself you're going to go to and you're going to achieve, when you get there, what is the emotional impact of that place? What does it do to you? Does it give you dopamine? Does it give you rest? Does it make you feel inspired? Does it make you feel even more driven? Because if you can pull out those emotional experiences and bring them into now, you will realize that there can come into existence today. Let's take, for example, looking at weight loss, right? Or, becoming more disciplined with exercise and diet and things like that. Many of us don't realize that we have to become that person internally before we even start to see the results. What's the process of the weight loss journey like? It looks like waking up early in the morning or going to the gym just before you go home after work and being disciplined with your diet and food prepping and counting calories and making sure that you're moving your body and being disciplined, right? But there's no like immediate joy of that discipline. You're working towards one day seeing the body that you've always desired. But along the way, sometimes you don't get the body you've always desired because you realize you created this body out of imagery that you've been seeing online. Let's say you want a dunk truck, you want BBL allegations, all of these things. You want a big behind, but then your physique is not even in your genes. And so you can create that, but it may not look like this image that you have been looking at. But guess what? You become that person as you discipline yourself, as you build yourself, as you develop yourself. And then because you've become that person, you begin to see those external results. And so for many of us, that's why we often feel like we arrive in places and we don't appreciate it, or we're not grateful, or we got it and it was like, oh, is this it? And you then feel like it's underrated and you don't cherish the moment as much. I've heard so many stories of brides who have dreamed of their wedding day. And when they get to their wedding day, they barely remember it because they couldn't put themselves in the moment. Right? It's just that simple. Many of us are living there until we get there, and then there is fleeting. It passes away. It moves so quickly, and then we're like, oh my gosh, it's gone. That moment, that big thing that happened has passed, and now there's another thing to achieve. We live in a world that glorifies promotion, that glorifies the six figures, the lifestyle, ease, quick results. And so the byproduct of that also is that sometimes we are rushing to get to this place. And like if you've ever spoken to elderly business people or just elders in general, they'll say like, where are you rushing to? Because you got time. By the grace of God, if you are able to live a long, nice, healthy life that many do, you'll realize you had time, more time than you thought you had. And so you realize that the pressure of promotion and results is driving so many of us, and it makes us begin to pick at the wrong things. We begin to pay so much attention at being over there in the future that we miss so much that's happening. We realize, or we will realize, that who you became on the journey is what determines the destination. What you did on the journey is what determines the outcomes. How you behaved, how you developed your character, how you stewarded your gifts and your responsibilities, how we look after what we have now is going to so much impact how we enjoy later. I want to bring something to your attention that maybe no one told you, but sometimes arrival disappoints. And I think I've kind of babbled along about it, but the reality is arrival disappoints because sometimes we don't realize what arrival actually means. Many of us have not sat down to think about the implications of arriving in that place that we say we want to be in. You want to be earning six figures. You want to be pushing out content. You want to be this. You want to be that. You want to have this body. You want to have this lifestyle. But have you ever considered what being that will look like and do to you? So in leading a startup, I can tell you for a start, if you want to run your own business, be prepared to work on weekends. This is not 9 to 5, honey. You will work. In fact, as Ghanaians will say, you will work and still work after. So many of us have been sold this idea that the promise or the dream is just going to be bliss and ease all the time, and it's not true. And actually we end up shooting ourselves in the foot and doing such a disservice to ourselves by just thinking that we'll get there and not need to be prepared for what that will require from us. A good example is someone like Stephen Bartlett, right? He talks about this in some of his earlier videos about how the reason why he sold his company at the time and became a multimillionaire, I believe he's a billionaire now, but at the time he became a multimillionaire from selling his marketing company, because he knew what was required to take the company, the revenue and everything to the next level, and he just didn't want to do it. And so he decided, do you know what, I'm going to sell. I'm going to exit. And that was good for him, because now we have Diary of a CEO. We have all these other great initiatives that he's now got capacity to focus on because he exited and sold his business. But many of us need to take stock of what there will require. We are so obsessed with how it will look like and how it will feel like. And so some of us need to have a come to Jesus moment and also take stock of what it's going to take from us to be that person over there. And that may mean that, do you know what? Because I run £1 million company, I'm not always at dinner with my kids on a Friday night, because I might be sorting out fires. I might be out with clients. You have to adjust your mind to the person that is over there in order to become it. And I don't know if I'm fully articulating how much of manifestation and how much of being this person and living this life that you desire is so much determined by today, so much determined by tomorrow, so much determined by what you did in the last hour. I'll say it like this: when you understand that who I am in 10 years time as the CEO of so company, or as the mother of so-and-so of these 3 little children, or the wife of so-and-so, I also now take on the responsibilities of what that place requires of me. And many of us want the glory and not the story. Let's go to church. So many of us want these outcomes, want the ease of years of sweat and labor, but have failed to become. And so what happens is that we hemorrhage. We don't manage the seasons well. And actually, when something does come to us, sometimes we don't even perceive or discern that it has come. I heard someone, it was either a preacher or the Holy Spirit. If you do not identify the little child's lunch of 2 fish and 5 loaves, you will not be able to discern that a feast of the thousands is about to happen. And so sometimes we have to be very, very grateful of the process and delight in the journey, because the point of this whole thing was the journey. It was never even about the destination. I would say what's really interesting about this whole become who you will be in the future now idea, and not idolizing over there but being it now, and being very conscious of every lesson that you are currently going through, and taking the mental notes, because in my own personal journey, from the time I was very young, I've always wanted to be married, always wanted to be a wife, always wanted to be a mother. And what has been really interesting about my journey, even as a single person, navigating my adult years, and especially being in a season where I'm at an age where people start settling down and all these things. What's so interesting about this desire is that by now I should have about 3 kids. But what's really interesting about the journey is that I had always desired to do so much of my life and so many of the things that I have achieved and actually done alongside someone, alongside a man, alongside my husband. And by the grace of God, I'm sure I will do some of those things with that person. But what's been very interesting is that because my life hasn't worked out where I'm married at a young age like I planned and all these things, I have actually had to be the person that I wanted to be with that person now, as opposed to waiting for him to come for me to now start getting ready or to start doing those things. And it's been really beautiful and also grueling at the same time, because it's just like, oh damn, if I'm gonna be a loving wife, I need to learn how to love myself. I need to learn how to cherish and appreciate myself, because how on God's green earth will you love your neighbor well if you do not appreciate and love you? That's one of the lessons. And so these are the things that we don't take stock of. And so much of my journey has been about process. It has been so annoying to be where I am today and to know that, oh my gosh, I spent so much time obsessing over what I wasn't perfect at, what I wasn't good enough at, what I could do better, all these things, constantly looking at tomorrow, constantly looking at 5 years time, constantly, only to get to a point in my life where I'm now like, oh wow, I'm so grateful for today. And only to realize that my whole entire journey was going to take as long as it needed to take for me to learn those lessons. I wasn't going to be able to fast track that lesson. It was going to take 2 years. I wasn't going to be able to skip that class. It was going to take 3 months or 6 months or whatever. And so many of us actually need to I don't want to say fall in love, but maybe we need to romanticize process more so that we can actually appreciate how much process produces everything that we say we desire. And so if process produces everything we say we desire, we should actually spend more time paying attention in the process. We should spend more time embracing the process, not complaining in the process, being grateful, having gratitude for the process, and knowing that, oh my gosh, tomorrow I will not be the same person because I embraced this lesson. Embracing the pain, the loneliness, the early mornings, the late nights, knowing that it's all worth it, knowing that that moment will soon pass, and then all you have is whatever tomorrow will bring you. Psychologists just simplify it and call it being present. But I think that there's something about programming your consciousness to embrace now rather than later. So here's the reframe. Okay, this is, if you didn't care about any other part of this is why you started watching this video. Here's the reframe. Learn how to bring there into now. Learn how to bring the discipline of there into today, and stop waiting for there to make you whole. Stop waiting for there to validate or resolve you. Actually bring there into now, whether by creating the emotional state through your imagination, through meditation, through focus, whether through the disciplines and the practices that are required of there. However you must do it, bring there into now by being. Bring there into now by being. Bring there into now by being. Being what you want to be today. My bio on my TikTok says, being my ideal self, because that's all I care about. My ideal self isn't someone in the future. My ideal self is current, because all I'm going to be doing over this next decade is being my ideal self. After this decade, we'll probably have a new agenda, but that's all. Designing a life that I want and I'm proud of by being her, because I've always been her, because her is me. Guys, I think I preached good today. I have no other words. But I think that if you're not able to learn this quickly, like me, and you know what, sometimes we can't learn this quickly. Sometimes it will take the fullness of a season, it will take loss, it will take painful lessons to teach us to actually just rest in, not laziness, but to rest in process and know that this will deliver. Don't make there an idol. The fool says, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. The fool says, a little sleep, a little slumber, before they realize poverty has pounced on them. the full weights and watches the wind to determine when to sow. But actually, if you are wise, you will lay hold of this simple principle that can actually fast track you, if anything. Many of us don't know how to manage the pain of becoming, and so what ends up happening is that because we have deferred so much, we end up not fulfilling the desire. We end up with so much regret of what we shoulda, coulda, woulda would have done, if we were to have actually embraced the process or the lesson. I hope that blessed you. If you like these videos, like, share, comment. I am interested in knowing whether this landed or resonated. Yeah, let's talk in the comments. But stay tuned for another video. Thank you so much for watching.